This is the city-nation of Aerdval. It consists of 7 hovering islands that slowly orbit the celestial waterfall, which in its turn has been pouring a magical water over the high jungles through a rift in the sky since the very beginning of time. Below waits an evergreen jungle with its Black Lotus Mesa, which contains some of the strangest fauna and flora in the Southlands. Wizards and scholars from all across Midgard and all walks of life have visited these lands to find one of its lotus flowers, which can have devastating effects, positive and negative, on any spellcaster. Beyond the warped wildlife of the Mesa, the great white apes dominate the jungle-covered islands of the swamp, and a group of refugee Ramach live on the plateau, scratching out a miserable existence on a small island. Will you be one out of roughly 10 creatures who are changed by the magical waters of the well, or will you be able to use its powers to your advantage? That is, of course, if the Green Walker does not drive you into insanity. Hi there fellow role players and game masters, my name is Mr. Drosk and welcome to another rough guide to Midgard, a video series where I take a bit of lore or a location from the Midgard campaign setting by Kobold Press and present it to you to see if you maybe can get inspired to use it in your own game. And today I want to talk about the High Jungles, which is a very evergreen magical jungle in the Southlands part of the Midgard campaign setting. And I want to talk about 3 things. First of all, I want to talk about where it is located. Then I want to talk about the city of Aerdval and its relation to the Well of Earth, because I just think it's such a cool location and such a cool bit of lore and world building that I just think that you need to go there at least once in one of your campaigns. And after that, I want to talk about lotus magic, something that I just discovered a few days ago from reading Kobold Press stuff, and I really like it. I really like how they create a type of magic that can have a positive influence on a spellcaster as well as a very, very negative influence on a spellcaster. So without further ado, let's get into it. So as you can see, the desert part, the warmest part, the driest part of the Southlands part of the Midgard campaign setting is being bordered by a greener part where there's more forests, there's more wildlife, there's more of all that stuff going on. But right smack in the middle, there is this really, really green part on the edge of the Crescent Desert and the green part of the Southlands way more south. And there's actually 2 reasons why it is this way. First of all, it is infused by the magical energy of the Well of Earth, which is basically a waterfall that comes from the sky, from a fracture in the sky, and it has been doing that ever since the start of time, or ever since people can remember, or whatever the lore says. There's just water coming out of the sky, not in a rain way, but in a waterfall way from a tear in the sky. And another reason is there is basically a big ass tree ant called the Green Walker who walks over this area, and he spreads all kinds of magical plant essence across the land, throwing all that stuff and vines and everything, infusing everything with magic and making everything grow, resulting in a combination of a lot of wildlife, but also a lot of weird plant creatures, a lot of weird animal creatures. There's human tribes here, but they aren't just like basic humans. There's white apes here, and it becomes this magical forest environment that I often compare to the old Margrave in the middle of the Midgard campaign setting. Now, the reason that I find this interesting, an interesting place for your players to maybe go to, is the contrast is just very high. I can imagine a group of players traveling through a desert environment, having to, I don't know, fight sandworms or sand dragons, or I don't know, scorpions that are pinning them down and whatever. They're doing all that hot weather stuff, and then suddenly they come up to this oasis of green that is just so beautiful, with a waterfall coming from the sky, and they can't even imagine the dangers that lie within that forest. Before we go on, I just want to quickly say that I offer great discounts on Kobold Press products over on Shard Tabletop, as well as subscriptions on Shard Tabletop. So if you're looking for a Shard Tabletop and you want to play Kobold Press stuff like Kobold Press bundles, there's books, monster books, all kinds of stuff from Kobold Press, and you want that at really good prices, check the link in the description below, click shop now, and yeah. Aerdval is actually a city that floats around, orbits around, I should say, the Well of Earth. Like I say, the Well of Earth is a waterfall that comes from a rupture in the sky, and it has been falling, the water has been pouring out ever since like thousands and thousands of years. And I say that it's a city, but it's actually leftovers of a city, because many years ago, the entire city came crashing down. It used to be kept aloft by a group that called themselves Arrowmancers. Arrowmancers used something called arrow magic in order to keep stuff aloft, right? So they failed in that, and the city came crashing down, of course, destroying half the city, probably destroying half the population, I don't know. But more importantly, the Arrowmancers discovered they could use the water from the Well of Earth that was pouring down on the Mesa below to their advantage, and actually increase the power of their spells and the power of their arrow magic. So what they did was they used the force in order to lift up some of the remains of the city, which are now 7 big islands orbiting this Well of Earth again, which is it has been doing that for many years now. Now, as you can see on the map of Aerdval, they have 7 islands. The top one is called Sunrise, and the lowest one is called Sunset. And this literally means that the Sunrise Island is where all the nobles live, the leaders live, the council, there's like the best market, the best inns, the best accommodation, and the lowest level is for the working class, the foot soldiers, all like the guards and whatever. And although the city is kind of like a beautiful city and life in the city is kind of good, there is of course a differentiation between people. So the lowest people live on the lowest level, and then there is everything in between. As you can see, everything is connected with like these bridges and pathways. But the coolest thing about this design is, I think it's the full circle kind of thing. They use the water from the Well of Earth to pours into like these pools, and then they use it to spread through the city, so they can use it for whatever they need. I don't know for what exactly they use it, and to infuse their magic and to help like the Arrowmancers do their thing. And then they don't keep it. It flows below, and it flows into the high jungle area, the Black Lotus Mesa area, because there the city actually needs that area to be and to remain the area it is, because the main thing this city does is they create essence of all of the magical plants, especially the lotus plants. There's different kinds of those lotus plants. They take this magical essence, they create essence of it, and they sell it on to merchants who visit the city. Now, you might be asking yourself, how in heaven's name, no pun intended, do I visit a flying city? Well, there's many ways. A lot of merchants come with like flying creatures. For example, they talk about it in the book here, something like Burak. That's a creature that flies over there with a merchant. There are probably people on griffins or whatever, but there are also a few teleportation circles that teleport you to other cities within the Southlands, and from those cities within the Southlands you can also teleport to the lower level, to the sunset level of Aerdval, where the market is, where you can buy all like the drugs that come from the plants that they harvested from the land below. So it's kind of a full circle thing. They use the water in order to keep themselves afloat, but they also use the water to like keep the jungle below them fruitful, so they can pick those fruits and then sell that on and then do their thing. So it's a full circle thing. I really like the design of Aerdval, and I just wanted to point your noses towards it because it really stands out in the Southlands. And that brings me to the Southlands Player's Guide, because on page 76 there is a part called Lotus Magic. And this is the kind of magic that comes from the lotus flowers that grow beneath Aerdval. So the essence, if you use that essence to infuse yourself, you can increase the potential of your spellcasting by a lot. Like, there's really powerful benefits to be had here. Also, like, wherever you buy the lotus essence, right? If it's like in Zobek, it's probably very expensive because it all goes through like almost all of it goes through Aerdval. Although there's always like people going to find those flowers for themselves, there's so much dangerous wildlife. There's vines attacking you, creatures attacking you that don't want you to harvest that stuff, that most people who attempt that basically die or have to run away. So most stuff you buy, most Lotus essence you buy comes from Aerdval, which is really cool. They kind of manage this thing. But the cool thing is there are also downsides, and really dangerous downsides. I'm not going to go into the numbers of Lotus magic, but they talk about 4 different kinds of Lotus: Amber Lotus, Black Lotus, Blood Lotus, and Indigo Lotus, right? So if you infuse yourself with Lotus magic, you have a chance of becoming addicted, and this is really dangerous because they talk about you're losing hit die, you're getting exhaustion, and you need like greater restoration in order to get rid of that addiction. And the addiction is really, really, really bad. When I read it, I'm like, yeah, that's TPK level of addiction. That's really, really bad. Also, for example, I'm just gonna pick the Amber Lotus real quick. If you infuse yourself with an Amber Lotus, you have this disadvantage on all wisdom ability checks and saving throws until you finish a short rest. If you are a spellcaster, you can use one application of the Lotus-infused ability to gain one of the following. You can gain DC of your enchantment spells +2. You can cast your enchantment spells as if they were 1 level higher. You can do that once. Or you can use some sort of meta magic once as an extra thing. But you can also if you can use 1 to 3 uses of the Amber Lotus as part of the action of casting a spell. When you use the same ability boost more than once, the effect stacks. So if you have a portion of Amber Lotus stuff, you can choose, like, I take 1 portion or I take 3 portions. And if you take 3 portions, the chances of becoming addicted are way higher, but you also can, you get to pick like 3 things from the list of increases from the benefits that you can get. Basically increasing your DC for a spell to 6 instead of like 2, which is really, really, really powerful. You can, like, that's a cool thing, right? So your spells can become really powerful, and if you get greedy, they can become really, really, really powerful, but also you need to get some rest, and you have like disadvantages on wisdom saving throws. And the Amber Lotus is all about the enchantment school of magic. For example, the Blood Lotus, I'm just gonna talk about the Blood Lotus real quick. It's the same thing, but you get disadvantage on charisma ability checks and saving throws. But this is about evocation. Your DC increases by 2, evocation or blood magic spells 1 level higher, or you can use meta magic, careful spell, or distance spell once if you take 1 portion. If you take 2 or 3 portions, again, you can stack all of that stuff up, but you will have to roll a higher DC, or you have to attempt more to not get addicted to the essence of the Lotus magic. So the chances of getting addicted are higher, and this addiction is really, really dangerous. So I absolutely like that you can bring your players to this area within the, like, they're traveling through a desert, right? And they come up to this beautiful city that flies, and they discover that there is this some kind of drugs that makes magic way more powerful, and they hear that it might be addictive, and some people are warning them, look out, it is a little bit addictive. You don't want to try this. This is not for the faint-hearted, whatever. But there's always that one player that's going to be like, okay, I'm going to trade 3 portions, and they just snore it in and just, oh, I'm so powerful. But they're also addicted, and they're probably, they need a greater restoration or like a lot of rest, which you as a dungeon master are probably not going to give them for free. And that was my rough guide to the Well of Earth, the city of Aerdval, and the land that lays beneath it. Again, this is a rough guide, so that means I just take a bit of lore, or I take a bit of like a location, and I present it to you, and I don't go extremely deep into it, because I want you to be able to interpret it for yourself when you read it. So make sure to check that out if this is something you like. Until next video, bye-bye.